I put a post up on my Instagram feed a little while ago, and based on how many of you said how much it connected with you and how much you needed to know these things, I thought it would be a good idea to expand on them. And so that is what we're going to do today. We're going to be talking about 7 necessary boundaries that everyone needs to know. And I'm also going to put the link to the Instagram post in the description below. So if you want to go back there for quick reference, anytime you can do that. You know how much I love to talk about boundaries. You know how important boundaries are for our health, for our happiness, for the quality of our lives and the quality of our most important relationships. And so today I'm going to talk about 7 necessary boundaries that everyone needs to know. These ones are important and ones that I have definitely needed and have worked to make sure that I am applying in my own life. Not to say that I ever always get them perfectly, but sometimes we win and sometimes we learn. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comments section below. And if you are back again, always good to have you here. Love being able to connect with you, seeing you all connect with each other in the comments, and just love what we've created here together. Take a second and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The button is about right down there. Either way, my name is Julia Christina, and I'm a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of my incredible membership community, the Shift Society, that you can get more information about, get on the waitlist for. So as soon as we open up registration, you can get in there. Important, meaningful, powerful things are happening with the people in that community. I help Heart Center go-getter people break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. I've talked about boundaries, about learning how to say no to other people, but boundaries are also about learning how to say no to ourselves, how to not let ourselves engage with, even entertain or take part in things that are not healthy or helpful. So having those internal boundaries, it's almost like having these guideposts, these things that we kind of put out there or kind of keep in there that we use to help us direct our lives to be able to be making choices, to be showing up in ways that are healthy and helpful and good for us. So the first necessary boundary that everyone needs to know is to not engage in unhelpful conversations, to not let yourself engage in conversations that are not helpful. And I'm not saying that any conversation that involves a difference of opinion or involves some conflict is an unhelpful conversation. A lot of times there are really good things that come out of disagreements, of people being willing to learn from each other, to be able to work together, to be able to just have some conflict. But I'm talking about the unhelpful ones where it starts becoming about name calling, about insulting, about undermining, about manipulating, or just someone who is not open to actually having a conversation. They just want to kind of say what they're going to say and treat you however they want to treat you. And there's nothing for you to do than sit there and take it, which you don't have to. You can choose to not engage. Even this can be as simple as someone just making an underhanded comment or saying something that kind of hits you in a weird way, and you can choose to not engage, not take the bait, not get involved. And this is different than just letting people treat you however they want to and just being a pushover. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a concept that I call intentional non-engagement. And this is when there's something happening, someone's doing something or saying something, and you're just like, you know what? Not my circus, not my monkeys, not getting involved, not taking the bait, not getting pulled into this. I'm just not doing it. I'm going to change the subject. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to just keep my mouth shut. Whatever that is. And you'll know whether it's like you're just like letting yourself be a pushover versus practicing intentional non-engagement. Because when you practice intentional non-engagement, it's going to feel good. You're going to feel like, okay, I am taking charge. of myself. I am choosing not to respond because I know that it's not going to be helpful. It's not going to go anywhere beneficial, and I just don't want to. So it's actually going to feel good. You're going to feel empowered afterwards. You're going to be like, good for me. I didn't get pulled into that one. The next necessary boundary that I think now more than ever that people need to know is that you do not have to argue with people on the internet. More often than not, good things do not come from engaging with or arguing. I shouldn't say engaging, arguing, getting into spitting matches with people on the internet. When people comment on things, people are often, they comment on them under the veil of anonymity. So often people make comments, people say things, people treat people in ways that they never would in real life. They would never say that to someone's face. And if they would, well, then we need to talk. But getting yourself pulled into, it's tempting. There are triggering things happening. There's inflammatory stuff happening. There's people saying things just to get a rise out of other people. And so being able to see that, being able to notice things kind of boiling up, the emotions boiling up, taking a deep breath and saying, not going to do it, not going to be helpful, no point, not going to use my energy for this. Not going to waste the energy that I have where I could be doing something healthy and positive and helpful for the world. I'm not going to use that energy getting involved in a spitting match with a stranger or anyone else on the internet. If there's a conversation that needs to be had, then we can have a real life, real-time conversation. But doing it in comments on social media posts is not going to be the place for it most of the time, unless someone is actually open in having a discussion. But you get to decide, again, selective or intentional non-engagement. The next boundary that I think is so important, especially with technology and all the bings and the bongs and the booms and the notifications and the attention that our devices, our phones, our computers, our tablets, the demands that they have on our lives, to turn notifications off. And I would even go a step further, and this has been something that's been so helpful for me, is leave your devices in another room. It is so tempting. Our phones and our devices are designed to make us addicted to checking them. And so just having one less temptation with some kind of notifications, being able to have one less temptation by always having your device right at your fingertips, being able to put it in a different room. Sometimes I just pretend it's like 1995 and nobody had cell phones and not everyone was reachable all the time, and people were fine. People were happy. People existed, not being able to reach others at, the snap of a finger, and us not being able to be reached at the snap of a finger. That you can have time to sit down when you have time to check, to look through, to engage with technology. Not that technology is bad. I'm not like an anti-tech person, whatever. I run most of my business and my work and what I'm doing off of technology. We're here right now. But letting yourself use technology to make your life more convenient, to benefit you. It's not for technology's convenience. It's for your convenience. It's not for anybody else's convenience of you. It's for your convenience, for what you want and need it for. It's such a simple thing, but with so many of the demands on our attention and how much technology, social media, email, everything just like sucks us right in and distracts us, pulls us away. Sometimes every few minutes, it's preventing us from being able to experience life and the people around us and the things happening around us in real time. So just something as simple, turning notifications off, leaving it in another room can make a really big difference. And that's a boundary. And then the next boundary that is important for all of us to be taking seriously is the boundary around creating space to prioritize your health. Knowing that this is the only body that we get. And so much of our experience in life is going to be impacted by our health, how we are feeling, how well we are taking care of ourselves, how much rest we're getting, how much we're moving our bodies, what we are nourishing our bodies with. And I'm not saying that you have to go crazy and that you have to be super strict unless that's your thing. But I mean, I'm not a really extreme person, so I don't really promote extremism. I promote balance and sustainability and connection to yourself, connection to your body, noticing how you're feeling, noticing what things add to your physical well-being and therefore your mental and emotional well-being, and which things take away from that at the physical level. So being able to pay attention to that. There are so many things that often seem so much more important. There are so many things that often seem so much more urgent. And there are even often things that seem so much easier. But noticing the difference of how you feel, what your experience of life is when you are moving your body regularly, when you are nourishing your body in a healthy way, when you are getting enough rest, when you are getting even not just rest. So rest is one thing, to being able to take a step back and rest and recover and take it easy sometimes, and then also sleep. But you don't have to take my word for it. And I'm not here to tell you to go out and create a whole health routine. But if I could invite you to experiment and to just notice what it feels like. Now, for me, I am not a naturally athletic person. I was benched in high school pretty much the whole season when I was on the volleyball team and the basketball team. I'm not naturally athletic. I don't have this sort of natural kind of level of fitness that some people are born with. But I do move my body every day. I go for a run or a power walk or do some kind of exercise every single day. And I'm able to do it every day because I've paid enough attention to how I feel when I don't versus how I feel when I do. And once I just have really just allowed myself to notice that and to respect that, I just don't want to not be able to feel the way that I do when I am moving my body and getting the oxygen flowing and the blood going and just sort of getting everything moving and moving energy through and sort of getting that out so that I can find my center and feel more grounded and feel more connected. I just feel so much better. And so it's become this habit. It's not a negotiation. It doesn't become this thing that I have to do. It becomes this thing that I get to do because I get to have the feelings that come with taking care of my health. And this doesn't need to be a big thing. This can be going for a 20-minute power walk. This can be putting on YouTube. You're already on YouTube. After this, search for a couple of your favorite songs, put on 3 or 4 of your favorite songs, put some headphones in and dance in your living room, in your bedroom, wherever you are, on the street. Why not? But making your health a priority because you get to feel better. Not because you become a better person if you're taking care of yourself, but just because you get to feel better. You get to enjoy life more when you do. The next thing, to create boundaries around. And I'm going to say this one a couple times because it's an important one. It might take a minute to click in, is to not make offers that you hope will be declined. And this is for my overfunctioners, my people pleasers, maybe even some of my empaths who are struggling with not having boundaries, that we want to do nice things for people, or at least we want to do nice things for people. And so we offer to do it, but are secretly hoping the person will say no, but want to kind of come across as a good, generous, loving, giving person by offering, but we're secretly hoping that person will say no. So in a big way, it's actually lying. Not actually being a good person by offering something we really don't want to do in sort of holding our breath and waiting for them to say no. And I'm going to talk about why in just a second in the next one, but really just noticing that, am I trying to look like a good person by trying to make it seem like I want to do things that I don't want to do. And what's wrong with me just not doing that, with not wanting to do certain things and me allowing myself to be okay with that? We don't need to outsource whether or not we're a good person to what other people think of how much we are offering to them to be able to do. We could get into talking about what it means to be a good person and why we so often are trying to prove that or earn that. It's a whole other talk for a whole other day. But just to know that that does not feel good to do it, because if the person says yes, we're going to talk about the problems that that creates, or the person takes you up on your offer. But just knowing that you don't have to offer things that you don't want to do. Because then, if they say yes, you're going to feel bitter. You're going to feel resentful. You're going to feel angry. Dang it, I don't have time for this. I can't do this. I'm worn out. I don't have the capacity for this. This is really not what I want to do. And then you're maybe going to do it begrudgingly, do it resentfully. And that's actually not good for a relationship. You think you're offering something because you think it'll be like good for the relationship, but then the person says yes. And then you're kind of pissy and crusty the whole time you're doing it. And then the person's like, why are you acting like this? Why are you kind of being, kind of passive aggressive or being kind of prickly with me? You're the one who offered it. Or you just stuff those feelings down and put on a happy face, and then inside you're seething. So offer things that you want to do and don't offer things that you don't, which also means that on the other side of this, you're not agreeing to things that you don't want to do or that you're going to feel bitter doing. So if someone else asks you to do something, that you're not agreeing to it because you think you have to, or because you'll think it'll somehow make you a bad person if you don't. Don't agree to things that you don't want to do, especially if it's not something that is like a make or break, right? Like there is some times where we do take one for the team, but then it's important if we're like, you know what, I don't really want to do this thing, but I'm going to do it. And it's so important that we change our thoughts about it. And then we get ourselves into a headspace where we're actually willing to do it. We're like, okay, I see the benefit of doing this. I see how it's going to contribute to this relationship. I see how it's important to this person. And I want to do that because that's part of investing in relationships. I see the value in this. So then you're actually changing your thoughts about it and you want to do it because you see the results that you're going to get from it that are the results that you want. That is different from agreeing to do something and then feeling bitter and angry and resentful the whole time. And then maybe even secretly blaming that person for making you do something that you didn't want to do. That is not good for relationships. That is toxic for relationships. Letting yourself say no when you want to and yes when you mean it. If you struggle with saying no, I have a free download. It's called 25 Ways to Say No. You can get that in the description below. And then I also have a crash course on learning assertive and effective communication skills. It's called Speak and Feel Heard. The link to that is below as well. The next thing, the next boundary that is super important, especially again in this day and age where it seems like emotions are running higher, tensions are running higher, but even just in everyday life, in any relationship, to allow yourself to put the boundary in, to take a step back, to cool down before you respond. To give yourself that space. If you're feeling activated, if you're feeling irritated, if you're feeling distressed, if you're feeling triggered, to put the boundary and say, okay, I am not going to deal with something. I'm not going to react to something when I'm feeling this way, because chances are I'm going to say something that I'll regret. I'm going to do something that I'll regret. It's not going to be helpful. I'm not going to feel good afterwards. It's not going to be good for the relationship. So I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to give myself a minute. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a bath. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to take a breath. And I'm going to center myself and ground myself and calm myself down. it's not just better for our relationships, it's also better for ourselves, for our sense of self, for our relationship with ourselves, for how we feel about ourselves, because we don't feel good when we are flying off the handle, when we're freaking out, when we are letting our emotions take over and then letting ourselves get out of control. It doesn't feel good. And now we have self-compassion for ourselves when it does happen, and we don't beat ourselves up about it because we are human beings. We're not perfect. It does happen. It's normal. So we do use grace and self-compassion for ourselves when it does happen, but we also are working to let it happen less often. Because like I said, it's good for our relationship with others. It's good for our relationship with ourselves. Take a second. You're allowed to have a second. No one said that you have to deal with something the exact moment that it's happening. If it's in real time, you can let the person know, I need a break. I'm getting really irritated. I'm getting really worked up right now, and I need to take a step back, or this is not going to go anywhere helpful. This is not going to be good for anyone. I need some space to sort this out. I'll come back to it later. Let's come back to it later. Let's put a time in the calendar we can readdress this, or just, in a couple hours, or whatever that is. Whatever you need, being able to communicate that, advocate for that, respect yourself with that. Way easier when it comes to emails or text messages, to be able to take a step back and not just kind of let your fingers start going before your brain starts working. Having a boundary around that, when I'm feeling activated, I'm going to take a step back so that I can choose mindfully how I want to respond. Boundaries are good for things on the outside. They're good for things on the inside. Boundaries are just good. I do have an entire intensive course on boundaries that I'll put the link to below as well, if you want to take this work to this deeper level and really work on the mindset blocks that prevent you from having boundaries, that are kind of getting in the way and making you feel like a bad person, or that are making, somehow having boundaries feel threatening to you in some way, or threatening to your relationships, or threatening to your sense of self, or whatever that is. And it teaches you specific tools and a process to go through when you are setting a boundary, to get clear on the boundary, and then to get really clear and confident in how you're feeling about setting the boundary, so that it clears the way to be able to do that. I will put the link to that below. That one is more intensive. But yeah, if any of you are interested in that. The free one, 25 ways to say no to get you started. Speak and feel heard. Easy to access crash course on assertive effective communication. And then the deeper dive on boundaries with Healthy Boundaries Bootcamp. Those are all going to be below. So good to have you here. Would love to hear what connected with you. Which boundary you are going to start being mindful of, where you're like, yep, I need a little bit more of that in my life so I can have a little bit less of the other in my life. Let me know in the description. Always good to have you here. Until next time, take good care.